So today we will be discussing on some problems related to mechanical property measurement. So this first problem, as you can see, it is on the hardness test and specifically Brinell hardness test. So first of all, let us write what are the given quantities. So in a Brinell hardness test of an unknown sample, the applied load was 500 kg. So P is 500 kg. Okay, then the steel ball diameter was 10 millimeter. So the steel ball diameter that is given, that is what is the diameter of the indenter. Okay, capital D, that is symbolized by capital D, that is 10 millimeter. And the mean indentation diameter obtained was 1 millimeter, which is, let us represent by small d as 1. So D, which is the average indentation diameter, that is given 1 millimeter. Now, when the corresponding thumb rule was applied, the tensile strength was found to be higher than expected. So, what is the thumb rule here? We know that to find out the tensile strength, we can directly use for the steel materials. Remember this thumb rule. Thumb rule is used for steel materials, right? For steel samples. And the thumb rule is the tensile strength in a megapascal unit will be equal to 3.45 into Brinell hardness number. Okay, so by using thumb rule, we can find out the tensile strength if that is a steel material. So what has been done? Using the thumb rule, initially the tensile strength of the material actually found. Initially, it was an unknown sample, so we don't know that whether it is a steel or some other kind of sample. So directly, without knowing that, we have used the thumb rule to find out the tensile strength. Okay, and that we can find out easily because from these parameters, these measurements, we can easily calculate HB. What is the formula of HB? You know, it is, so let us write it again. So HB is given by the formula 2P divided by pi d into d minus square root of d square minus small d square. Okay, so this is what is the formula of the Brinell hardness number, where you have to put the value of P in kg force unit and the value of capital D and small d in millimeter unit. Okay, so if you just put these values and just do the calculation, you will get that it will be what? You just do the calculation around 635. You please check whether in your case it is also coming that or not. So it is coming around 635. So now you just simply find out the tensile strength using the thumb rule in megapascal unit. So you just do 3.45 into 635, and if you do that, it will come around 2191 megapascal. You just check what it is coming. It is around 2191 megapascal approximately. Okay, in that order. Please check whether it is coming or not. So this is the first part, the strength predicted by the thumb rule. The first part, and you see this is the answer. It should come like that. Okay, now coming to the second part of the problem, where since it is coming 2191 megapascal, it has been observed that this value is higher than what is expected of that material. Okay, so that is why what is done is that Tabor relationship is applied, and if the Tabor relationship, if you apply, then just copy that. So you see, what is the Tabor relationship? You know that for the Tabor relationship, the tensile strength are divided by Brinell hardness number. This quantity is equal to 1 minus x divided by 2.62 into 10x divided by 1 minus x to the power x. This is what is the Tabor relationship, where this x is what? This x is equal to n minus 2, where n varies from 2 to 2.7, and this n is what is called the Mayer index. Okay, this is Mayer index. N is Mayer index. Now for
Sir,
the yes.
স্যার এটা লাস্ট ভিডিওতে তো ছিল না।
Yes, Tabor relationship was not there, but in the last class I mentioned that you can use this particular formula if that particular sample is a non-steel sample. Okay, so
Okay.
in those case, how to find out the relationship between the Brinell hardness number and the tensile strength. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now in this particular problem, the Tabor relationship when used, considering the Mayer index is 2.7. Okay, so if the Mayer index is 2.7, you just put the value of the Mayer index 2.7, then you can see for this particular problem it is coming 0.7, because in this problem it is Mayer index is 2.7. Okay, so x is equal to only 0.7. Now just put the value of x in this expression and see what is this constant. You have seen that this whole constant actually in case of steel is 3.45, right? This constant is 3.45 in case of steel that we use generally as a thumb rule. But in this case, let us calculate what is that constant. So if you just simply do this calculation, you will get 1 minus x, that means 0.3 divided by 2.62, and here you see 1 minus x is 0.3 and 10x is 7 to the power x, that is 0.7. Please do this calculation and see what the value is. So it is 7 divided by 0.3 and then to the power 0.7 and then multiplied by 0.3 and divided by 2.62. So if you do that calculation, you will get this value is coming 1.038. It is coming 1.038. So tensile strength is equal to 1.038 multiplied by the Brinell hardness number that we have already calculated is around 635. What? So 1.038 into 635. If you do that, remember your answer will be in megapascal unit, that you always remember, and it is coming around definitely 659.47. That is what is the answer. You please check, okay, whether it is coming in.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the first problem. I think it is not a very difficult problem. Only thing is that you have to remember the formula of the Brinell hardness number, and you have to remember the Tabor relationship, and definitely you have to remember this thumb rule which is used for the steel material. Now the third part of the problem, the question is the reason for the difference is why you are getting different result when you have used the thumb rule and when you have used the Tabor relationship. Definitely we can conclude, since they are quite different, so it is clear that that particular material is not a steel sample. Okay, so this is what is the final answer corresponding to the C. The reason is definitely the sample is not a steel sample. Okay, if it is a steel sample, definitely its value should be similar even if you use the Tabor relationship or close to the actual value. Okay, now coming to the problem number 2. Now this is a problem related to the tensile test experiment. Okay, So we know what happens in a tensile test experiment. From the tensile test, we get a load elongation diagram. Okay, you know that what is a tensile test. There is a sample like this. This kind of sample is there, and then tensile load is gradually applied from 0 to higher value, and between 2 points, maybe this point and this point, this is what is the gauge length. Okay, the initial length. This is what is the initial length. You can represent by L0, initial length. Okay, gauge length. And we actually measure what is the change between these two marked points. Okay. Okay, so if we see this load elongation diagram, typically the load elongation diagram is like this. So this kind of load elongation diagram you will observe. Now let us see what are the different informations given. So first thing, it is given that 13 millimeter is the diameter. So list down the information first. So diameter, that means the initial diameter of the specimen. So let us write that is D0, that is 13 millimeter. Okay. Then it is given that the material having a modulus of elasticity which is 207 gigapascal. So modulus of elasticity of the material is 207 gigapascal, and you know that gigapascal is what? 10 to the power 9. Okay, megapascal is 10 to the power 6 and gigapascal is 10 to the power 9. Remember, for this kind of calculations, always try to write all this data in meters. So it will be what? 13 into 10 to the power minus 3 meter. Then 50 millimeter is the gauge length. That means that is L0. L0 is 50 millimeter. So 50 into 10 to the power minus 3 meter. Okay. And the load corresponding to the 0.2% offset is 6800 kg. That means corresponding to 0.2% offset, if we call this is 0.2%, corresponding to 0.2% offset, we know we can find out the equivalent yield point. Okay, so the corresponding load that is given, which actually represent P corresponding to the yield point. Okay, Py. So P corresponding to the yield point, that is given 6800 kg. Okay. What else? Then maximum load is 8400 kg. So maximum load, so which is basically corresponding to, you know, the ultimate point. So this is corresponding to ultimate point. So write P ultimate. Okay, Pu, and that value is given 8400 kg. So it is always preferred that you convert it into the corresponding SI unit. So you simply multiply it by the G and convert it into Newton. Okay. Then what else is given? That the fracture occurs at 7300 kg. So here you can see the fracture occurs at that point. So you see that fracture takes place at this point, and P fracture, Pf, is what? 7300 kg. So these are the informations given. Okay, and the diameter after fracture is 8 millimeter. So it is possible to find out the diameter after fracture. You know that when the fracture takes place, after that if you calculate the diameter, so that diameter is what is the final diameter. Okay, so you can give some name to that, say, so df, the final length is 65 millimeter and final diameter is 8 millimeter. Final diameter is 8 millimeter. Okay, so these are the informations, and you can easily convert it into corresponding SI unit, that means in meters. And finally, what else is given? If the elongation at the maximum load is 22%, elongation at the maximum load, that means this is what is the maximum load point. So corresponding elongation is given 22%. 22% elongation means, you see, this delta corresponding to maximum, if we call this as delta max, it is given in percentage. So basically the information which is given is this delta max divided by the initial length. This is what is the 22%. Actually this information is given. Okay, so we have list down all the informations which are given here. Okay, now we'll solve the problem. What you have to find out. So question is, what is the plastic strain at the maximum load? That is one of the questions. And also there is another part of the question, calculate the standard properties of the material from the tension test. Okay, so from the answers you can see what are the standard properties of the material. Generally ultimate tensile strength is a very important, yield strength is another very important property, right? Breaking stress, okay, or the fracture strength of the material, that is another one. Then percentage elongation, which is a measure of ductility, you know. Percentage area of reduction, that is also measure of ductility. And finally that question, that plastic strain at maximum load. Okay, so let us try to solve this problem. Okay, so to solve this problem one by one, let me keep this figure. So one by one we'll try to find out these quantities. Okay, so first is ultimate tensile strength. Okay, so ultimate tensile strength will be equal to what? This is the first part. This is what is the solution. These are the first thing we want to find out, tensile strength of the material. So tensile strength will be corresponding to the stress at the maximum load. Okay, so this point is corresponding to the tensile strength. So what is the corresponding load? We already know that load is Pu. So tensile strength corresponding to the ultimate point is Pu divided by initial area. Always remember, we calculate everything in the engineering stress strain diagram in terms of initial area. So what is Pu? So Pu is 8400 multiplied by 9.81. Multiplied by 9.81, then it will be in Newton. Okay, and that divided by A0. A0 is initial area. Initial area is circular. So pi by 4 into initial diameter squared. So what is the initial diameter? D0 square. So initial diameter is also known to us, that is 0.013. So if you just put that value here, where we know that this D0 is 0.013 meter. Okay, just put that value, then answer will be in Newton per meter square, and do the calculation for that. Okay, so if you do that calculation, you will find that it will be, let me check, 8400 into 9.81 into 4 divided by pi divided by 0.013 square. So it is coming 620.82 into 10 to the power 6. So it is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 620.82. You please check what is coming in your case, and this multiplied by 10 to the power 6. If you just do this calculation, you will find this is coming, and definitely this is coming in Pascal unit. So it is better you represent. Always remember the order of magnitude of the strength quantities like yield strength or the ultimate strength or the fracture strength. You always express these quantities in megapascal unit. Always express, because they are order of magnitude in that range. If you have to represent, suppose, modulus of elasticity, always represent them in gigapascal range. They are generally of gigapascal range for the metals. So this is basically 620.82 megapascal in that order. You just check what is the answer. Answer is 620 megapascal approximately. It is written. It's okay. So this is the first part. Then you have to find out yield strength of the material. So what will be the yield strength? Exactly in a similar way, you know that what is the yield strength of the material is equal to P yield divided by the initial area. Do the calculation, and as you can see, this value is 6800 into 9.81, so that it is converted into Newton. And remember where D0 is 0.013 in meter. So Newton per meter square. So it will be in Pascal, and if you do the calculation, definitely it will satisfy the answer. So what is the answer? It will come close to 502 megapascal. If you just do the calculation, it should be in that order. So it will be around 502 megapascal. You please check. Then what is the next thing we have to find out? The next thing we have to find out the breaking stress, and that is exactly in a similar way, because you know what is the fracture stress value, breaking stress or the fracture stress. It's all the same, and that strength value will be corresponding to the fracture. Okay, just to do the calculation and you will get the result. So I'm not repeating the calculation. Then you have to find out the percentage elongation and percentage reduction in area. Okay, so for the percentage elongation and percentage reduction in area, so for that, what is the definition of percentage elongation? See, percentage elongation, this is the measurement of the ductility. If the percentage elongation is more, then it is more ductile material. So percentage elongation is defined as the final length minus the initial length divided by the initial length, okay, and multiplied by 100%. So this is what is the definition of the percentage elongation. So you just do this calculation and you will get the percentage elongation. So for this particular problem, let me check what is LF and L0. You see that LF is 65 and L0 is 50. Okay, so it is immaterial in which unit you are actually calculating, because percentage elongation do not have any unit. So you simply can do that 65 millimeter minus 50 millimeter divided by 50 millimeter into 100% and check what is the answer. Okay, so this is regarding the percentage elongation. And fifth one that you have to find out, that is what is the percentage reduction in area. Okay, so percentage reduction in area, that is again another measurement of ductility, because if the percentage reduction of area is more, then it is a more ductile material. Okay, in fact, for a truly ductile material without any impurities, this percentage area reduction will be 100%. Okay, so the definition is what? the definition is initial area, because initial area is more and the final area is less. So A0 minus AF divided by A0, that means the initial area, into 100%. This is what is the definition of percentage reduction area. So in our case, you see that pi by 4 into d0 square minus pi by 4 df square by pi. So pi by 4 will cancel, right? So pi by 4 will cancel both numerator and denominator. So it is basically what? d0 square minus df square divided by d0 square into 100%. You do the calculation because you know what is d0 and df. If you see that d0 was 13, you see that d0 was 13 and df was 8. Okay, so again no requirement of the unit because this quantity is unitless. In the same unit you just put the values. Okay, so if you just write as 13 square minus 8 square divided by 13 square into 100%, and this will be the answer. Okay, so this is what is the percentage reduction of area. So these are the 5 important quantities that we measure from the tensile test experiment. Okay, then there is another part in the problem, and that part is that you have 2 parts. One part is elastic, maybe up to the yield point we can consider it is elastic, and after that there is a permanent deformation. So exactly in a similar way you can understand the strain having 2 parts. One part is the elastic part, and another part is the plastic part. Plastic part means the permanent strain, permanent, corresponding to permanent deformation. Elastic means which is recoverable. Okay, the 2 parts is actually there. So your question is you have to find out the plastic part of the strain if it is known that the total strain is 22%. Because you know what is the definition of strain? The definition of strain is basically the elongation at that point divided by the initial length. This is what is the definition of strain, and that quantity is given corresponding to the maximum load. Okay, corresponding to this maximum load point, this quantity is given. It is 22%. That is given. This quantity is known, but we have to find out this portion, that what fraction of that is plastic. Okay, to find that, now let us consider if from this maximum point, if we unload the material, if we unload the sample, that means if the load is removed, then what will happen? Then definitely the elastic component of the deformation, that will be recovered, but the plastic or the permanent deformation part will permanently deform. So at this location, if you unload, then what will be that unloading curve? Unloading curve will be like this. This will be the unloading curve. And you see that this particular line will exactly follow this straight line, initial straight line. That means within the elastic region, this straight line, it will follow that straight line. Okay.
Parallel.
Exactly, this will be parallel. That means, because you know this is what is the equation of the elastic portion. Okay, elastic portion will follow this much. That means this much of deformation, this much of deformation is basically the elastic deformation, your elastic recovery. Elastic recovery. That means you can see when the load is removed, at that time you see still this much of permanent deformation will still be there. So this is the permanent deformation. This much will recover. This much will recover, you see. Okay, so this is what is the elastic recovery takes place, but this much is the permanent deformation. So your question is actually find out how much is the permanent deformation. If you can find out that, simply divide that by the initial length and you can find out that plastic strain. So this is corresponding to the permanent deformation strain, or this is corresponding, this part will help you to find out the plastic strain. Okay, so let us first, we know the total strain. Let us try to find out the elastic strain. We'll subtract and we'll find out the corresponding permanent strain. So how can you find out this deformation? Tell me. Or how can you find out this particular strain? It is very simple. Just look at this diagram. This triangle. This is a triangle, right? And what is this slope? This line is exactly parallel to this line. So if this line is exactly parallel to this line, so the slope will remain same. So this slope is nothing but the modulus of elasticity. What we know in the stress strain diagram, this particular, if instead of a load elongation diagram, if it is a stress strain diagram, how the stress strain diagram will be different from the load elongation diagram? Only you are dividing by a constant quantity which is not changing. You are dividing by a constant quantity that is not changing, right? So the shape will be exactly same, only the size might change. So the shape of the stress strain diagram will be exactly similar. Okay, only the magnitude will be different because P divided by a constant quantity, the initial area, and delta divided by the initial length. That will only change the size of the diagram. That's all. So this slope, you know that this slope is, if this angle is theta, you know that the slope, what is the slope? If the angle is theta, the slope is tan theta, right? So this tan theta, you know, is nothing but the modulus of elasticity. Okay, so if this is modulus of elasticity, so definitely in this diagram, this angle, if this angle is theta, then we know that this tan theta is nothing but the modulus of elasticity, because this line will be parallel to the initial straight line portion. So this quantity will be what? Since now we are considering in the stress strain diagram, this is corresponding to the elastic strain. So epsilon elastic. And what is this height? This height is sigma corresponding to ultimate point, right? And you know that tan theta is equal to E. So what you write? That E is nothing but tan theta is perpendicular by base. So this is equal to sigma U divided by base, that is epsilon elastic. Now you know already what is sigma U, because in the last page we have done that part. What is the stress corresponding to maximum load? You know the tensile strength value, and you already know what is E because that is given in the problem. In the problem, the value of E was given. Okay, the value of E is given, and sigma U already we have calculated in the last page. Sigma U, tensile strength. Okay, sigma U, this quantity is basically the sigma U that we have just calculated. So use that value of sigma U and from this equation you find out what is the elastic strain. So that will be the value of sigma U divided by modulus of elasticity. Okay, just do this calculation. Sigma U was probably what? Its value was 620, around 620 megapascal. So you put the actual value, not required more than 3 or 4 significant digit. That is sufficient, 620, and that divided by modulus of elasticity value, what was given? That value is 207 gigapascal. Remember this one in megapascal, so this is in gigapascal. So 207 into 10 to the power 3. So just simply do that calculation and hopefully you will get the answer for that. So once you get the elastic strain, when that will be known to you, then the remaining part is that you have to find out the plastic strain. So the plastic component or the permanent component of the strain will be what? The total strain, that is already known, 0.22, minus whatever you get here. So minus that elastic part. So that you have to find. So this will be the final answer. Okay. And hopefully you will get
So answer take the 3 into 10 to the power minus 3.
Which one? Elastic strain. Elastic strain, let me calculate. 620 divided by 207. Yes, it is in that order. 2.9 into 10 to the power minus 3, right? So it is in the order of 3 into 10 to the power minus 3, and 0.22 is there. Okay, so 0.22 minus 0.003. You just do that calculation and you write your answer. Okay, so this is the way you have to calculate. So more important thing is that the procedure, that how to approach. Now coming to the next problem, that is problem 3. This is again a problem related to the tension test, the tensile test. The question is, in a tensile test, the metal fracture occurs at the maximum load. So metal fracture occurs at the maximum load. So this is basically the ultimate point, and this is the fracture point. Okay. So now the condition at the fracture, these are the informations given. Like the information is final area, that is given 100 millimeter square, and final length 60 millimeter, and initial area and initial length, those are also given. It is 40 millimeter and 150 millimeter square. So these are the informations given. The question is, you have to find out the true strain to fracture. Determine the true strain corresponding to the fracture. That you have to find out. But from the engineering stress strain diagram, you can only find out what is the engineering strain. Okay, and the true strain, if you have to find out, then you have to use the true stress and true strain and the engineering strain relation. So first thing first, you find out corresponding to this fracture point. If the epsilon is that epsilon f, we give the name epsilon f as the strain at the fracture. Remember, epsilon indicates the engineering strain, and if it is a true strain, then always we will use this suffix capital T for the true strain, and if we do not use any suffix, that means it is engineering strain. Okay, in this convention I am trying to do this, and this suffix f indicates the corresponding to fracture, but this is engineering strain because T is not written. So epsilon f will be what? We know the definition of the strain, that is final length minus the initial length divided by the initial length, because this is what is the deformation up to the fracture point divided by the initial length. So all these informations are known. So you just write this 60 minus 40 divided by 40, and you calculate what you are getting. So it is probably 50%, right? So 50% or 0.5. Okay, you can write that the strain is 0.5. Okay, then what is the problem actually is, you have to find out what is epsilon true at fracture. This is actually the question. This you have to find out, not the engineering strain. So what is the relationship between engineering strain and the true strain? So we will use that relation, and that relation is engineering strain, true strain is equal to ln into 1 plus engineering strain. So this is basically the formula, and you have to use this formula to find out the true strain at the fracture. Okay, so simply put the value of epsilon as 0.5 and you will get the result. So epsilon T at F, so epsilon T at F will be equal to ln 1 plus epsilon F. If you do that calculation, ln 1.5. Okay, because epsilon f we have already calculated 0.5. Just do the calculation, what you are getting, ln
0.405.
0.405. So it is coming 0.405. So this is what is the true strain. I think this one is a simple one. Now let us go to the next problem. So this is again another problem related to tensile test, where tensile test specimen is a 12 millimeter initial diameter. So quickly note down the informations. So specimen having a 12 millimeter initial diameter. So D0 is equal to 12 millimeter. Then gauge length, initial gauge length is 50 millimeter and reaches a maximum load. So P max, that means that is corresponding to the ultimate point. Okay, so P max is corresponding to ultimate point. So better you write that symbol corresponding to ultimate point is what? 90 kilonewton. And fractures at P corresponding to fracture is 70 kilonewton. Okay, and the minimum diameter at the fracture, that is also given, df is equal to 10 millimeter. Okay, so what you have to find out? So first you have to find out, determine the engineering stress at the maximum load. So engineering stress at the maximum load, that you have to find out, part A. So engineering stress at maximum load is sigma max or sigma ultimate, and that is equal to sigma max, and that you can calculate by Pu divided by the initial area. Simple one. Both the informations are known. AO you can easily calculate with the help of initial diameter. Okay, pi by 4 into D0 square, where D0 is what? 0.012 meter. Okay, always use SI unit, and Pu you just convert it into Newton. Okay, and if you keep it in kilonewton, then answer will be in kilopascal. But remember, ultimately you have to express the strength values in megapascal unit, because strength values are of megapascal order of magnitude. Okay, so that is very important. Always keep it in mind. The final expression should be in the megapascal order if those are strength, and if those are Young's modulus or modulus of rigidity, if this kind of quantities you have to express, then it will be in gigapascal unit. Okay, second is maximum load and the true fracture stress. And the true fracture stress, you also have to find out what is the true stress at the fracture point. And fracture occurs at this point. So true fracture stress, that you have to find out, sigma fracture, and that will be very easily we can find out, because we know what is the load corresponding to fracture. But when you are finding out the true stress, you divide by the actual area, right? It's better you divide by the actual area, the true area. So what is the true area at the fracture? You divide by that. And already we know PF is what? 70. It was 70 kilonewton. Okay, so this is the formula you can use to find out the true fracture stress. So you just write sigma true corresponding to fracture point. Okay, sigma true corresponding to a fracture point, and that is equal to the load corresponding to fracture point divided by the actual area. So how can you find out the actual area? And that actual area you can find out based on the final diameter, pi by 4 df square. Okay, so use this relation to find out the area, and then you will get the true stress. I think this part is clear. So now you know what is the engineering stress at the maximum load. This is what is the engineering stress at the maximum load, the ultimate tensile strength. That part is okay. And then true fracture stress. So this is what is the true fracture stress, because you are dividing by the true area. I think this part is clear. Now coming to the second part of the problem, where you have to find out the true strain at fracture.
Sir, একটা question ছিল।
Yes.
ছিলাম ওই DF টা কি 50 মিলিমিটার হয়ে যাচ্ছে?
Which one? DF is given, na?
50 মিলিমিটার, ওটাই 50 মিলিমিটার।
Which one?
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে স্যার, ঠিক আছে।
DO and DF, those are given.
ফার্স্ট লাইনে দেয়া আছে the tensile specimen with a 12 millimeter initial diameter.
That is the initial diameter, DO. DO is our initial and DF is final. Okay.
আচ্ছা তারপরে ওটা 50 মিলিমিটার মানে ম্যাক্সিমাম লোডে যাচ্ছে দিয়ে আবার ব্যাকে আসছে নাকি মানে ফ্র্যাকচার হওয়ার সময়?
No, this is the length. This is the length.
ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে।
Length of the sample is this one. This is LO and this is DO diameter. Okay.
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
Okay. So now, second part of the problem is determine true strain at fracture. Okay. Now you have to find out the true strain at the fracture. How can you find out the true strain at the fracture? So for that, what you can do is that write the stress strain relationship first. Write the stress strain relationship. What is the stress strain relationship? You know that sigma true is equal to sigma into what? Sigma into
1 plus
1 plus epsilon, right? And you can write the engineering strain and the true strain relationship that we know is what?
ln into 1 plus epsilon.
Okay. So we know these two relations. Okay. Now, what we can do is that we can find out the engineering strain, or 1 plus epsilon is what? Find out 1 plus epsilon from the first equation. What is 1 plus epsilon from this equation? That is sigma true divided by sigma engineering, right? So sigma true corresponding to the fracture and sigma, that is engineering stress corresponding to fracture, these two informations we can easily calculate, because already we know this value. This value we have just calculated, sigma true at fracture point. And how can we find out sigma at fracture point? That is very simple, because sigma at fracture will be equal to the load corresponding to the fracture divided by initial area. That is what is the definition of engineering stress, right? If you do that calculation, you can find out what is the value of 1 plus epsilon. And once you get the value of 1 plus epsilon, you just take the natural logarithm of that and you will get the true strain. Clear what you have to do? So true strain will be equal to natural logarithm of this divided by this. Okay, just to do that calculation, and you will get the true strain corresponding to fracture. Okay, so this much of calculation, because this one already we have calculated here by this formula, and this part you have to calculate because that is very simple, corresponding to fracture divided by the initial area, because this is the engineering stress at the fracture. Okay, so only thing you just mention here that we are assuming that this engineering stress and true stress relationship and engineering strain true strain relationship is also valid up to the fracture point. That means we are actually assuming that the volume of the sample volume is constant. This is what is the assumption, though this assumption is not very true after the necking occurs. So but still in this problem we do not have enough information so that we can calculate the strain at the fracture point. So that is why we are actually assuming volume is constant. That you have to remember, this assumption you have to mention. Okay, and do the calculations and check the answer what it is coming. Now coming to the next problem, that is the problem 5.
স্যার সিগমা এফ টা যখন ক্যালকুলেট করব মানে নট দ্য ট্রু ভ্যালু তখন আমরা 12 টাকে ইউজ করব।
Yes, yes.
ঠিক আছে।
Next is the problem is there is a rectangular steel plate which is shown in the figure, and the dimension of the plate is given, as you can see, 400 into 550, and the thickness is 20 millimeter. And you can see the stresses that is acting on that plate, that is also given. Its properties, modulus of elasticity and the Poisson's ratio is known. So what you have to find out, find the maximum in plane shear strain and the volume change, that you have to find out. Okay, so first of all, you have to know what is the relationship between shear stress and the shear strain. Okay, shear strain we generally symbolized by gamma, and this gamma is equal to what? The shear stress. If the shear stress we write as tau, and that divided by modulus of rigidity. This is the relationship that holds true up to the elastic region. Okay, so within elastic region this relation is true. So if you have to find out what is the gamma max, then definitely you have to consider what is the tau max, because we are assuming that G is constant, modulus of rigidity, where G is what? Modulus of rigidity or shear modulus. Okay, and this is shear stress. This is shear stress, and here we are finding out the maximum shear stress. Okay, to find out gamma max. So this is the formula that we are using, and G, first of all you have to know what is the value of G, modulus of rigidity, and for that we have these two informations, and we know that how G is related to this E. You have to remember, we know that E is equal to 2G into 1 plus nu. What is nu? Nu is the Poisson's ratio. Poisson's ratio. Okay, that you have to remember. So this is the formula. So you know modulus of Young's modulus, you know Poisson's ratio. So from here, first you find out what is the value of G. This is the first step. And the second step is you have to find out the maximum shear stress. Okay, and then you have to divide and you will get the answer. So how can we find out the maximum shear stress from this state of stress that is given on the element? Okay, to find out that we have to draw the Mohr circle of that. Okay, so the Mohr circle, if you draw, here you see that this is what is sigma x. Here we are considering this direction as sigma and this direction as tau. You can also consider upper one as the tau, and that all things depends on how you are considering your sign convention. I am doing in this way. So what we are going to put is that sigma x comma 0. What is sigma x comma 0? Basically, what we are doing, you see the 2 points corresponding to these two planes. So corresponding to this plane which indicates the x-axis, corresponding to that, what is the state of stress? The only normal stress is there and there is no shear stress. So sigma x comma tau xy. So this is what is the point that represent this particular plane, the state of stress at this plane. And it is clear that what is the value of sigma x here? That value is sigma x. And what is the value of tau xy? The value of tau xy is 0. Okay. So the first point is sigma x comma 0. And in this particular problem, let me see if there is any value of sigma x is given or not. Yes, the value of sigma x is given 67 megapascal. So you just write. So the first point is what? 67 comma 0. So this is the point, indicates the plane, this plane that is shown by the red color. Okay, this plane is the state of stress at this plane. State of stress means normal stress comma shear stress. So this is the coordinate point. Okay, so if you just put this value, then it will be like this. Say this is the point 67 comma 0, and then what is the state of stress at this plane? The state of stress at this plane is sigma y comma tau yx. Okay, so this is the shear stress at this plane, and it is clear that there is no shear present in this plane as it is shown. So this quantity is 0, and what is the value of sigma y? The sigma y is
Minus
negative.
23.
Yes,
The minus 23.
right. Sigma y is minus 23. Minus 23. That means this plane is actually under compression. Okay, this is what is the physical meaning of that. So minus 23 comma 0. So you put that point. So this point corresponding to actually x plane, and this point minus 23 maybe say this point, which indicates basically the y plane. That means this particular plane whose direction is y. Okay, so so this value is 67 comma 0, and this is minus 23 comma 0. So now if you draw the Mohr circle, we know that x plane and y plane, what is the angle between these two planes? The angle between these two planes in the original element is 90 degree, and we know that in Mohr circle it is just the double of that. Okay, so they are basically diametrically opposite in a circle. So that means angle between them is 180 degrees. So that is, it is a diameter. So if it is a diameter, then where will be the center? Exactly midpoint of that. So that is what? Definitely 67 minus 23 divided by 2. So if you do this calculation, it will be what? 2 minus 64 by 2. So it is coming 2, right? So
minus 23 to there. So
yes, that is why the midpoint will be what? This one, 22 comma 0, right? So we can see this will be the center. So now this is one of the circumferential point. So you just simply draw the Mohr circle. So your Mohr circle will look like this. This will be the Mohr circle. So now look at the Mohr circle and tell me.
ল্যাপটার ওটাই কি করে 90 180 ডিগ্রি হচ্ছে স্যার ওই সিগমা y আর সিগমা x টা
No, here we are not explaining that why this is happening, because this is a prior knowledge. That means if you just simply write the expression of the normal stress and shear stress in terms of sigma x, sigma y, if you write these things, then you will find that and the expression of the tau in terms of these quantities, you will find that it's a parametric equation containing cos of 2 theta and sine of 2 theta. Okay, now if you eliminate from these two equations, that means if you eliminate theta, then you will get the equation of the circle. So actually the parameter here is 2 theta, which is theta is the initial angle at the original plane. If the angle at the original plane is theta, in the equation it is coming 2 theta, and that is why when you are representing this equation in terms of a circle, so this angle representation will be just double. But that is a algebraic thing. You will do it in your strength of material classes. Okay, right now I am not going to explain that part. Okay, you just remember right now that what is going to actually happening. So we can see now from this diagram where it is maximum. It is clear that this axis, if this axis is the shear axis, then maximum will definitely at which location? Definitely the maximum will take place at this location, right? Either this point or this point. The shear is maximum because y-axis is the shear axis. So maximum value is this, and that is nothing but what? The radius of the circle. And the radius of the circle is what? You can see that just the midpoint of that means this length. Okay, this is what is the radius of the circle. So, and this length is what? This length is basically this minus this divided by 2. Okay, so that is basically what? 67 plus 23 divided by 2, right? If you do that, what is the answer? You just check.
45, sir.
45.
This coming 45. So this value is basically 45. Okay, so 45 is what is the maximum shear. Clear? So you can find out in this way the tau max, and once you know what is the tau max, then you just put the value of tau max here in this expression and put the value of G here, and you will get the value of gamma max. Okay, this is what is the technique. Okay, now this is the in plane maximum shear stress. I'm not going into much detail of how to find out if the situations are both the sigma x and sigma y are positive. In that case, the in plane shear stress might be maximum from the Mohr circle, but you have to draw the cross plane Mohr circles also. But right now this problem is not so difficult. One of them is tensile, another one is compressive, these principal stresses. That is why the problem is simple, because that in plane shear stress is the maximum. So that is why it is like way you can find out gamma max. What is the other part of the problem? Other part of the problem is you have to find out how much will be the volume change. How much will be the volume change of that particular plate because of this kind of stresses which is applied. So what will be the volume change? To find out the volume change, what you will do, let us consider the initial dimensions. You know these x, y, and z. So what is the initial volume? X, y, z. Then what you do? You have to find out the change of volume. So to find out the change of volume, what you can do? You find out what will be the final volume. The final volume will be x plus delta x, right? Y plus delta y. How much will be the elongation in the y direction? How much will be the elongation in the z direction? Like, and then you just simply subtract this quantity from this quantity, and you will be able to find out the volume change. To find out the elongation in the x, to find out the elongation in the y, or to find out the elongation in the z, you have to now work out. So what is delta x, that you want to know. What is delta y, that you want to know. Because x, y, z, these quantities are given in the problem, right? So how can we find out delta x, delta y, and delta z, so that we will be able to find out the volume change, right? So the volume change will be minus of this, plus of this. This is what is the change of volume. Okay. So how can you find out this change in x, y, and z? So for that, what you can do, you can simply write what is epsilon x. Epsilon x is the change of length along x direction divided by x, right? So x is a known quantity. If you somehow find out what is epsilon x, you will be able to find out delta x. As simple as that. So how can you find out delta x? That will be x into epsilon x. So now the question is, how can you find out epsilon x? This is the question. Exactly in a similar way, you can find out delta y. That will be the initial length in the y direction into epsilon y. And similarly, delta z. Clear? So the question is, how can you find out epsilon s, epsilon y, and epsilon z? This is the question. And from the generalized Hooke's law, we know their expressions, right? So what is epsilon x? You know epsilon x is equal to what? Sigma x by E minus Poisson's ratio by E into sigma y minus Poisson's ratio divided by E into sigma z. Similarly, what is epsilon y? Sigma x into, with a negative sign, sorry, let me, what is epsilon y? That is sigma y by E minus by E into sigma z, and its lateral direction in the x also, right? And what is epsilon z? Tell me. That is sigma z by E and negative in the other directions. So minus epsilon minus nu by E into sigma x minus nu by E into sigma y. Clear? So that we have already seen. This is what is the generalized Hooke's law, and sigma
So
x.
epsilon y টার ওটা এটা ম্যাগনিটিউডটা কি হবে? অপোজিট হবে between
No, I mean,
sigma y by
I am writing that sigma x is given. What is the value of sigma x given? You just put 67 in megapascal unit. Okay, so sigma x is 67. What is sigma y? Sigma y is given minus 23. And what is sigma z? No information. That means we will consider 0. Okay, so just put the value of sigma x, sigma y, sigma z. You also know the value of E. You also know the value of nu. And only thing that you have to remember, you put all of them with the same unit. That means 67 if that is in megapascal, and modulus of elasticity, remember, that is in gigapascal. So you have to write in the same unit. Otherwise, there will be a problem. So convert into the same unit so that ultimately each of the term will do not have any unit. And then you put all these values and you will be able to find out epsilon x, epsilon y, and epsilon z. And after that, you find out what is delta x, delta y, delta z, and finally find out what is the volume change. Okay. So I think you got how to solve the problem minus the initial volume. Okay, this is all about this tutorial.